Welcome, truth seekers. If you're ready to know the truth, then you come to the right place. Hebrews to Negroes touches on various subject matters and topics that are too controversial to be said or shown on TV or talked about by most of our educated black leaders. This is the kind of information that they do not want you to know. Most people are scared to reveal or stand for the truth because of fear. Fear of repercussions that alter their comfort zone of living. But I have no fear, and I didn't sign my soul over to the devil. This is Ronald Dalton Jr.
Hello, everybody. This is Tina Matthews. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, because my phone is actually really wacky. Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Hebrews Negro Show.
Are we on?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so tonight we're going to continue our discussion about the Israelite Awakening, Part 2.
Right.
So, Ron, before we go to commercial, about you want to share some thoughts about the Awakening. So, please young man.
So, sorry for the glitch, everybody that's listening. But, today we're going to be going again into the Israelite Awakening, Part 2. It's the awakening that is happening right now. It's not just in America, North America. It's also happening all over the world. It's happening in Central America. It's happening in South America. It's happening over in Africa, in West Africa, East Africa. You got people from South Africa that's awakening. You got the Zulus and the Xhosas and people down in that area. And you also have people in India. You have people in the Caribbean. And you even got a lot of Israelites in the UK, in Europe, that a lot of people don't know about. That's also up on game to who are the real Israelites. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because everybody has a lot of different stories on how they have learned about the true heritage and authentic Hebrew Israelites according to the Bible. And basically we want to hear what people have to say during the show. People can call in to press 1, and they can see and explain how they awaken to the Israelite truth. Sometimes people are told by their parents. Sometimes people are told by their grandparents. Everybody has a different story. Some people may be told by their pastors, the ones that are in the truth. Some people have done their own this research on the side, also in church while they're in sermon. And so we want to hear from everybody in regards to what are their awakening. I'm going to bring some examples out from people that have contacted me and I've talked to over the last 2 years in regards to the Israelite awakening that's happening not only in America, but also overseas. So, on that note, Tina, you can take us to pay some bills from Russia.
Right. So we got to pay them bills. And before we go to commercial, I just want to mention this. We for the Hebrews Negro Show. And the reason we set that up is because what Ron and I are doing right now, in addition to the books that he's writing and the seminars and the books I'm writing, we're doing this because we want to make sure that we get the word out to our people, and that we're able to provide the necessary support that we need in our communities, because all of us know somebody that, has gone hungry, somebody that can't pay a bill, somebody that's struggling. And so what we want to do is we want to be that conduit to be able to help support our people. And as everyone that's listening knows, you can't have a revolution without resources. So I'm asking all of you, when you get a chance, it's all, it's on social chance, please, Hebrews to Negro Show, GoFundMe. And as much as you're able, please contribute so that we can have the means to impact our community. So on that note, I'm going to ask our engineer to take us to commercial. You are listening to the Hebrews to Negro Show on the Survival Radio Network, where we do radio.
If you're an investor, real estate agent, or bank official in need of a professional and reliable company to handle those abandoned or foreclosed homes, look no further. Clean & Cut Georgia offers the highest quality workmanship and customer satisfaction. With over 25 years of experience in plumbing, drywall fit, painting, and much more, they are your one-stop shop. Give them a call today at 678-542-4744. That's 678-542-4744. Clean & Cut Georgia, a licensed and insured company.
On October 1st, the Atlanta Blues Society is presenting their first Georgia Blues and Roots Festival at the Maple House Barnes Amphitheater in Mapleton. For more information, go to GABlues, That is GABluesandRoots.org.
It's the book everybody's talking about. This has been a public service announcement by acclaimed author Gabe Polk Payton based on the Latin term res ipsa loquitur, which means the thing speaks for itself, or more commonly known, it is what it is. This book speaks to relationships, fitness, parenting, religion, and more. Get your copy today by going to www.gabepolkpayton.com. This has been a public service announcement.
Testing. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Yes. You are tuned to the hottest network out. SRN. We do radio.
Hebrews Negro Show. This is Tina Matthews, and I'm here with my co-host, Ron Dalton. So, Ron, I hope you can hear me, and I apologize to our listeners. I don't know what's going on with my phone, but that's because Sprint is really whack. But, Ron, as you were talking about before the commercial, can you please go into some, examples of the ways that we're waking up the globe?
Okay, so I'm going to speak on a lot of different examples. I'm trying to be long-winded, but people need to listen up and listen very clear. So just for example, you have a lot of people from America. We all know a lot of people from America are waking up to the truth, but what people need to know is that other people also are waking up. I had a chance one time. I ran into a guy. He was 93 years old, and he had an accent. I said, "Sir, you have an accent. Where are you from?" And he said, "Well, I'm from Belize." And I said, "Well, you're black." And he said, "Yes, I'm black." And he started laughing. And then he went on to tell me that his parents were from India, but they came by way of the Caribbean island to Central America, because Belize is in Central America right next to Guatemala. That's one of the territories where the Mayans, Indians used to live at pre-Columbus. So he looked at me and he said, "Well, do you know who you are?" Because he asked me a question. He said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm African American." And that's the typical answer that anybody would ask somebody, actually, "Where are you from?" They say, "Well, I'm African American." You really don't have a homeland. You can say we're from Africa by way of slavery, but I told him African American. So he said to me, "No." He said, "No, you're not African American." He said, "You are an Israelite." He said, "You're a Hebrew Israelite." And I smiled at him because he didn't know at the time that I was writing a book about Hebrews to Negroes. And so he went to tell me that the Hebrew Israelites were scattered all across the world. They were scattered to India. A lot of people from India were taken as slaves to the Caribbean. And then from the Caribbean, a lot of people, blacks, including Indians, were taken as indentured servants or slaves to the Americas, in his case, Central America. And that's why his parents, when he told me he said they were from India, and his grandparents and his ancestors, I was like, "Whoa," I said, "From India, but you're black." And he says, "Yes." And so he started breaking down that history. And so he even knew, this man was 93 years old, so he's probably born in the 1920s. And he knew that he was a Hebrew Israelite and African American Hebrew Israelite. And he said that a lot of black people need to wake up to their heritage, because we're not African Americans. We're not, just descendants of slaves, which they teach us in school and they show us on TV. Then I had a chance also to meet a man that was working, and he said he was from Liberia. And, a lot of people from Liberia, if you talk to them, they say they're from the Kru tribe, or the Basad tribe. And so the different people I talked to, Liberia, like for instance, one man, he told me that he knew already that we are the children of Israel, and that people in Liberia are also the children of Israel. And of course, we know that a lot of slaves were taken from Liberia to America, and some of the slaves actually came back from America to Liberia, and they set up the free colony. And so I talked to another lady, she was from Liberia, and she said in her school, growing up, her teacher would teach that they were the children of Israel, including the African Americans that were in America today, and that we didn't know our heritage, but they taught this in the school that she went to. And so you see a lot of different people, and that's in the west part of Africa, between Sierra Leone and the Ivory Coast. Now, I also got a chance to meet a young man. He was Mexican, Latino, and he found out about the Hebrew Israelites and African Americans being descendants of the Hebrew Israelites on my Instagram page. And he said that he had told his dad about it, and his dad lived in Mexico. And he said his dad was a professor in Mexico, and he taught in his class that the African Americans don't know their heritage, and that they are descendants of the Hebrew Israelites. And so we went on to talk, and I talked to him about the Native Americans, about their Israelite heritage and whatnot, and he was just blown away that his dad knew about this in Mexico. So bringing it back to America, I'm going to bring it back to America and back to Africa. I ran into a lady. She was 90-something years old, and she said that when she was engaged to her husband, she said, engaged to her fiancé, she said that the father said to her fiancé at the time is that you may marry my daughter, but there's three things that she must do, that she must uphold. And then I asked, what was that? And so she said to me that she must observe the Sabbath, she must not eat pork, and then he also said, I don't want you hitting on my daughter. So the first glance when I thought about the pork thing, I thought that she was maybe a Muslim. But then when I heard him say about the Sabbath, I said, well, wait a minute. I said, are you a Hebrew Israelite? And she smiled at me, and she said, yes. This lady's 90 years old. So I asked her, well, who told you he was a Hebrew Israelite? And she says, well, my father knew about it. He, told my fiance at the time that, I had to keep Sabbath and not eat pork, and also, they didn't want nobody beating on his daughter. So then she's going to go tell me that her grandfather was a rabbi from the South, and that, and I said, well, wait a minute, your grandfather was a rabbi from the South, and he must have lived in the 1800s, the late 1800s, probably when after slavery was abolished. And so he even knew about the fact that they were Hebrew Israelites. And what she told me was that a lot of the slaves, well, not all the slaves, but some of the slaves kept their history, and whatever their forefathers passed down to them over the years, they kept this. And they kept the knowledge that they were Hebrew Israelites. Now, she said not all of them could tell their young ones about this. She said a lot of the elderly or older people that knew their history were separated from the young children during slavery, and so they couldn't learn the ways of their ancestors. They couldn't keep their language, and they couldn't keep their religious practice and cultural practices they kept in Africa. And you see this, like in the TV series Roots, how they disconnect you so they make you start speaking English and start learning their culture. And so when she told me this, she said that she was a Hebrew Pentecostal. And so I met her whole family, because the whole family was not too far away, and her whole family all said that they knew that they were Hebrew Israelites and that they had a Hebrew Pentecostal church that they had went to. And so I was just blown away because I had never seen a group of people, about 20 people, that knew that they were Hebrew Israelites. And then I got another story. I met a man from India. There's a certain state in India called Kerala. And Kerala is one of the only pretty much states in India that's Christian. And their tradition and history states that the disciple Thomas came down to minister to them and spread the gospel, just like in James 1:1 it says, to the 12 tribes of Israel scattered abroad. And so St. Thomas went down to India, supposedly, and he spoke to the Hebrew Israelites in South India. And this is even verified by Benjamin Tudela. He was a rabbi, a Sephardic, Gentile rabbi that visited to the Malabar coast off of Kerala, India, and he noted that there were Hebrew Israelites there, and they were black, just like the people.
Well, let me ask you a question. So let me ask you a question. From all the people that you experience and encounter, and I know you have like 30,000 Instagram followers, and I'm not hating a lot, maybe a little bit, but is there a common theme among people that you talk to? Is there when I say a common theme, I mean, do you notice a trend as far as people, quote unquote, waking up? Like, does something happen and they just all of a sudden the light comes on, or?
Well, I think that the movement that we're experiencing in America, and also with social media, and also with just people having the ability to search and research on the internet, they're finding out different things about their heritage, some of the things that their parents or grandparents may have taught them, and it's starting to spark little light bulbs in regards to what they're reading in the Bible. A lot of people will say, we, just like in Hebrew, we say the name Yeshua for Jesus, or Yeshua, or we might say Yahuwah, for the name of God. And so when they start to, do that, and they start to ask their parents or their grandparents about what they've learned by researching on the internet, maybe seeing some stuff on social media, then they find out from their parents and their grandparents that, hey, my parents and my grandparents knew about this, and they were taught about this from their parents, and then they come to tell me their story and how they're learning stuff about their history that they never bothered to ask because of this new age of knowledge. With technology, people are finding a lot of things about their past heritage. And it's happening, in, like I said, in India, it's happening in the Caribbean, it's happening in the UK, it's happening in Africa. And it just so happens that this Indian guy, he said that, we say the name Jesus with a Y, just like the Hebrews do. And, when I researched the language of their people, the Malayalam language, in which I put in my book and also my seminars, is that the Malayalam language has a lot of Hebrew in it. And a lot of people don't know that. And also the language of Tamil, which is seen in Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka. Their language also has Hebrew and Assyrian Aramaic mixed into it as well. So, that goes into the 10 tribes that were scattered into Assyria, and in India is not too far away from Medes, Persia, or Iran. So what I've noticed also is also in West Africa in particular, we have a lot of Nigerians in America. We have the Igbos, we have the BBO ethnic, and we also have the Yorubas. And so a lot of Igbos were told by their parents and their grandparents that we are descendants of the children of Israel, and that many, many, many years, centuries ago, long ago, we left Israel and then ventured into Egypt, and from Egypt they crossed down Sudan, and then all the way across, eventually ending up in Nigeria. And when I talk to them about the Hebrew Israelite Awakening, they say, well, you're telling us something that we've been told by our ancestors for years. And sometimes when I'm talking to a group of Igbo men, they usually laugh and they say, "You see, he knows our own history better than we do." And so they acknowledge that they've known about this, so-called Israelite ancestry that they have going back. But you see, over time, with westernization of culture in Africa and in TV and movies and music, you tend to stray away from your old traditions and your heritage and culture from the past that maybe the older Igbos did back in the day. And so now you have modernized Igbos that may not know their true heritage, but people now are waking up, especially with the age of social media and the internet. So
wow. Okay. So let me ask you a question. This is a question, and listeners, for all our listeners, if you have a question or comment, please press 1, because this is an interactive platform. Your voice matters. We want to hear from everybody that's listening. But my question to you is, with this awakening, why is there so much dissension? Why is there so much division within our people when we're supposed to be quote unquote awakening?
Yeah, I think that it's nothing but a way for Satan to sabotage and try to keep us from getting to a common goal. But I think that nevertheless, we are going to eventually start to see the severity of what's going on in America and the world. We're going to start to unite. We're going to start to put aside our differences. If you want to call God Ahaya, if you want to call God Yahuwah, if you want to call God Yahusha or Yeshua or Yawahashi. I really strongly believe people are going to put aside these differences and they're going to start to come together because we all stand in the truth, especially most of the Hebrew Israelites that are Messianic, that believe in Christ. They believe in the Old Testament and New Testament. But right now, what you're seeing is mainly, like, in my opinion, is distractions. I see that we're becoming pharisaical, or we're debating over the laws, we're debating over the name. We got one camp that's kind of beefing with this camp, and then you got people that, is running up on people and different things. And a lot of it is just debating. But, at the end of the day.
Right. So, Ron, listen.
Go
ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your thought because we have a listener. We have a caller with a comment, but finish your thought, please.
Oh, like I said, at the end of the day, obtaining understanding is good and having dialogue is good, but then when we start arguing, we start getting mad, we start cussing at people, we start cussing at people, Bantus people that we may have been calling them Africans all these times, but they're Israelites. That's not good. It's only creating more division, which we don't need.
With that thought in mind, welcome our caller, Conscious Woman from Boston. You have a question?
Well, I really didn't have a question. I was just going to really share because I read Ron's book. The very first time I read the book, it blew me away. It brought me to tears. And after reading the book, I think coming into this truth, it happens in phases. And to me, it sealed the deal on understanding where we all are as people of color. I'm actually from the islands. I'm from Trinidad, and I found out that the people from Trinidad, they come from the Igbo tribe in Africa. And
right.
when you read Ron's book, to me, it just, it ties in everything as to why we are the way we are right now. And I think if anyone reads this book, and they really need to read the book, I mean, every person of color needs to have this book in their house because, I'm an African major. And, when I first became into this truth, it's like, you know about African slavery. And you know the whole process and the operation of all about it, the beginning of it, the middle of it, why it happened. But there's always the question: what brought us to that point, and why did we get to that point? To me, when you read Hebrews and Negroes, it answers it. It gives us the answer of why we got there. And I think more importantly, once reading the book, I think it's really important for all Hebrew Israelites is to start reflecting on their lives because this has to do with the Most High. You see, we are the Most High chosen's children, and I think we need to get to the point to start looking at our lives and trying to really please Him, so we can get ourselves. Because this is not, this explains why we can't be where we are. In Ron's book, in Deuteronomy, it explains why we are suffering the way we're suffering. And it has, it has to do with our forefathers, but it's time for us to change and really start coming together as a people.
No, go ahead,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, sister, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Sister, let me ask you a question. So, so you already had a background, which is a blessing because a lot of us don't know. So I didn't know that,
right.
I derived from the Igbo tribe from Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, till this year. But you had that background, and so that's a blessing. But so, what do you think are the obstacles that people that are awakening, or let me just even say, not even awakening, people that the Holy Spirit is pulling the truth?
Right.
So tell me what you think about the obstacles that they face, because the reality of it is this: I believe a lot of the remnant is in the quote-unquote black church. And that's a whole different show, and that we're going to talk about that soon. But
I think you're absolutely right, though.
Yes, ma'am.
No, what I was going to say is
tell me what you think about the whole.
Well, as far as with us, I think one of the things that is the problem is the church, because there's two different types of understanding about who the Most High is and, and what He requires. So that's the division there. The other thing I think also is that us people of a color, doesn't seem to understand that one of the things that we have to do as a people is that we have to, it is a spiritual, it's all about spiritual. And a lot of times when other people, like other Israelites, a lot of it is fear. Once you do know the truth, you're forced to change. You have to change. And I think for some people, for our people, if what we don't know don't hurt us, or if the Most High knows what we don't know, but it doesn't go that way. And I think that's the problem. They don't want the figure. If I don't have to find out about this truth, if you do find out, if they do hear some of it, I think they're scared. They don't know how to handle it. I mean, because you have to remember, people have been conditioned for so many years to a certain belief. And now we're being forced to understand that it's not the way it is. Instead of 10 commandments, there's 614 commandments. We have a lot of things that we have not been exposed to. So coming into this truth now, people don't want to they've come to accustom to this European westernized life and lies that they've been told. They don't want to accept the truth for the most part of it. But at some point, they're going to accept it, or, if they don't accept it, they're actually going to me, in my opinion, they may very well perish, because, you have to conform to who your original, the original person that you're supposed to be. And I think that's the fear of that, because when you come into truth, you have to change. And that's the problem. We don't want to change. We want to keep up with this lifestyle that is really, is not according to the Most High. There's some things that we have to change as women and as men. And, we are a holy people. And we've been so far away from being a holy people for so many years, but it's a lot of adjusting. And that's the fear. People don't want to change. And when you hear truth, it's either you're going to embrace it or you're going to run away from it. So that's why.
Thank you so much for your comments. We bless you.
And
I'm
blessed by it too. Yep. Hello?
Yep.
Yep. So, it was a pleasure, and I just want to say that Hebrews to Negroes is a book that people need to get, because it's going to change your life. It changed mine. Even though as much as I know as an African major, I didn't know nothing. It just, it really actually gave me more knowledge than I ever had. I thought I had, anyways. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Tina, do we have another caller? Because I got something else I want to talk about briefly, if you can hear me. So I want to talk about a man that I had met, and we're going to keep it going with the Ebos. And this man that I met, he was a pastor, and the pastor was half Igbo and half Yoruba. And so this man, he said that, I told him that we are the, real Jews. Do you know that? And he said, yes, I've heard about that. And so I asked him, do you know about any people in Yoruba land that, had Hebrew Israelite traditions and cultures and things that they were doing that were different than the Yoruba people? And so he said, yeah, there's
Ron.
People. Right. Hello?
Ron?
Yeah,
Ron, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I apologize to all of our listeners. My phone is so whack, but we have a caller actually on the line, Samaria, that had a comment. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so Brother Samaria?
Simonaya.
How do you say it again?
It's pronounced Simonaya.
Okay, shalom, brother.
I'm chewing up your name.
Shalom.
My bad, sir.
It's all right. It's okay. I believe there was a question made in terms of the awakening of Hebrews relative to the conflict or the division amongst us.
Right.
And I want to say this, if I may. One of the things that is strong and true in the scriptures. It's stated that no one can come unto the Father unless he draws, and I'm referencing John 6:44. and John 12:32, where the Messiah said, if he be lifted up, he'll draw all men. And with that said, there's a drawing that is taking place. And I believe that most of us can't understand or are not asking or seeking, how do we get unity among the set-apart ones? It's like everyone has an opinion or position of belief, but I don't hear that question being asked with sincerity. And I can't say everybody, but from my exposure. But I want to say this: Hebrews 12th chapter talks about the chastening or discipline, and in Revelation 3:19 it talks about that he disciplined those who he loved. And so I just submit, as we are become awakened. When Hebrews were rebellious, we faced famine, drought, pestilence, and disease. And I would challenge the listeners to take a look at Amos 4th chapter, verses 6 through 13. And specifically, I think it's around the 12th verse, it says, prepare to meet your maker. And I think there's no doubt that we agree, most of us will all probably agree, we're in the end times. Exactly. And if we're at that point where it say prepare to meet your maker, and if we also, and I'll try to bring this to a close, if we also look at Revelation 7th chapter, I think it's the 3rd verse where it was saying, do not harm the sea, the earth, and the trees. And if we look at global warming and deforestation, right now, from a natural perspective, the scientists already say it's possible that by 2030, if not before, that mankind can be extinct. Right. And so the scriptures talk about putting off the corruptible and putting on the incorruptible. With that said, that's relativistic. That's relative to describing extinction. So getting back to the unity part, I believe if one was to start looking at the habitable places on this planet from a global warming, from pollution, from radiation perspective, from a famine perspective, we'll see that the world is dying. And I believe as we weaken, then our fortitude or energy for arguing and debating one another will begin to lessen, because we'll start looking at those who, in spite of the conditions, still hold their head up and understand what they're being guided to do. So with that said, I believe out of weakness, we will see those who are walking in the Spirit become strong, and those who begin to identify those that are being used by the Spirit, we will find ourselves drawing together.
Exactly. So let me ask you a question, brother. Sure. Let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's just what I do. But so do you think that part of it going to require a separation of messianic, non-messianic camps, non-camps? I mean, do you feel like there needs to be a separation, or there will be a separation among us as we continue to strive and endure until the Messiah comes?
Well, I believe, and you can. I'm talking to somebody also on Facebook. I don't know who's reading my comments there, but I believe he's showing me a picture of what's getting ready to happen, and it started. So I've put over 1,100 recordings defining what's getting ready to happen. In answer to your question, there will be a separation, and there's a parable that the Messiah gave. I call him Yahusha. There's a parable. It wasn't until probably, I guess, a couple of years ago, and I saw it differently. And it's in John 6th chapter when he fed the multitude. And verse 12 and 13, the Messiah, and I think it's only in John where it says the Messiah told his taught ones, or some people might say disciples, to pick up the pieces after he fed the multitude, and as a result, they filled 12 baskets. Well, I think several months ago, and I don't know the pinpoint the right date, I believe he put upon me, as though the Spirit put upon me, that if we begin to yield and discern his spirit, he's bringing the pieces together. So a lot of us have strong convictions, and because of our emotions and anger or surprise at this day and age, our strong convictions are shadowed by a lot of our feelings or what we hear other people say. And so I think that there are fragments of truth starting to come together. If you look at how the laws and commandments were given to us by what many people say Moses, I say Musha, but Moses, I say Moses for the sake of clarity. It began at Mount Sinai, and then man scattered, and we came away from the laws. If we look and trust that the scriptures are true, that he's going to draw us back to him, there's a movement now. Among Hebrews, we're waking up, even among Europeans or Caucasians, or some may say Edomites, who desire to pursue set-apartness or righteousness. They have a movement called, what they're saying is Hebrew Roots Movement. And they're moving to the laws and commands as well. So those who are desirous of pursuing righteousness are gradually being drawn. And so it's like the pieces of truth are coming together. I just heard one admit that, you can't get the chosen children from Hamite or Japheth lineage. It's from the lineage of Shem. So if we look at what's happening right now, there are concessions of who we are coming out. And I think one of the things that promote that is most people outside the United States know that the world is at a point of no return. It's in the most industrialized communities where greed and profit distracts. So it's hard for us to believe that we are on a collision course to total extinction, which the scripture talks about, putting off the corruptible and putting on the incorruptible. So I know I said a lot, but in answer to your question, yes, there will be a separation, and we don't have to fight. I think when people start dying of thirst and food or forced out of their homes, whether it be tsunamis, tornadoes, and so forth, they're going to look to see what people are saying, and someone's going to say, this was written. This is written in the scriptures, and this is what we must do. We must not fear what man can do, and we must seek what he wants us to do. So whoever we see enduring through that as it relates to the scriptures, we'll find ourselves drawn together. So as we stay out of our weakness, we'll become strong in the spirit.
Right.
Did I answer your question, or did it seem like I danced around it?
No. You basically feel the same way I do, and that's why I was so compelled and motivated to write the book Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America, 2014, because I saw the signs, and I try to listen to that subtle voice of God and the Spirit leading me to do what He wants me to do. And I see, like you said, everybody's not going to be saved. There's going to be people that's going to reject certain things and certain signs, and I see clearly that we are headed for a huge storm. And like I always say all the time, there's something really bad coming down the pipeline. And it's only going to be those that really are listening to the Father and embodied by the Spirit that's going to come together, and they're going to be the ones that's going to try to endure to the end. Because regardless of what teaching that you believe in, whether you believe in the mid or the pre, the mid or post tribulation rapture theory, I subscribe to the post where basically we're going to probably endure a lot of the curse, a lot of the seals and the vials and the bowls and the trumpets. For those people that are still living on this earth, while we're living on this earth, we have to eat. Like you said, we have to have shelter. We have to have medical health. And we also have to have our strong faith in God when this strong delusion comes, and also when this economic system collapses, when they start forcing things on you like vaccinations and maybe RFID chips and the whole nine. Everything that they're showing you on TV and movies. Because they're showing you all types of stuff going on in movies about what's coming down the pipeline. It's just a matter of time that these satanic forces are going to have their balls all ready to go. And, you hit it on the nail, basically everything you just said. And like you said, so people are going to eventually weaken and wake up. And then some of these division and debates, people are going to start pushing that to the side and realize the severity of the time we're in and that we need to come together.
True. I'm going to go on a limb and say this. I believe this truly, but I say this because if indeed it's true, then I say hallelujah. If indeed it's wrong, then mark me as one being deceived. But I believe in Thessalonians when it says, until he that restraineth is moved out the way, I believe that it's going to get to the point where the one world government is going to remove borders, and opportunity will come where he talks about being there will be those that will be gathered from the four corners of the earth. Mm-hmm. And I think when that happens, then we'll see the full ministry of the anti-Messiah. And I think we won't see him revealed in his fullness until that gathering from the four corners of the earth. And I believe that because this is written that we're not appointed to wrath, that's referring to those whom he has chosen to fulfill that prophecy. And to understand that what man does to this body, that's not us. Our perception as believers would not be his wrath, if that makes sense to you.
That makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
In other words, like he reigned on the just and the unjust. So if a tornado came and it killed me and killed the neighbor next door, it doesn't mean that I got caught up in his wrath. To the non-believer, his wrath. To me, he took me home.
Exactly.
Well, put me to sleep, because there's no scripture that says we go to heaven. It says the spirit goes to the Most High, and the body goes back to the dirt of which it came, but it doesn't say it goes to heaven, which people erroneously say. So since it doesn't tell us where it goes, most people think it's gone to heaven because it says we're put in his possession, as it states in Ecclesiastes. But no, I believe that the gathering is soon to come. And there's even dialogue. I look at things from an aggregate perspective. There's dialogue right now with the UN to have a global passport. And to some degree, they're saying either they will do that with a global ID or just remove all border altogether. And so for even among the non-believers, that dialogue is going. To me, as believers, an opportunity is going to come where that those who wish to go home, so to speak, will be gathered from the four corners of the earth. And so I think that's going to be in this generation's time. So I won't take up too much more time of your show, but I just wanted to share that. Thank you for your patience.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and to touch on that, they are also people like I was mentioning the Evos. That I talked to an Evo man, and he's read my first and second book, and he even told me he sometimes calls me and says, Ron, we black people need to wake up because it's about to get really bad out here, and he even sees it. I mean, he's in America, and he wishes he can go home. He's probably thinking all the time how he can get back home, and it's a lot of other Evos in America. And you have Ebos, you have BBOs, you have people from Cameroon right now that actually see what's happening in the world today. And, they're prepared if something happens to try to get back home, back to West Africa. And they see exactly what's going on with African Americans and how, a lot of us are still asleep and blind. I mean, we don't even know who we are. We don't know why we've seen this homosexual, transgender agenda. We're not seeing why they're forcing so many things on us, why there's so much surveillance. While the economy is getting worse and deindustrialization of America, the whole world is getting more wicked, and more people are becoming more godless and more lawless, and they're not really paying attention to their Bibles and not even reading their Bibles. So you have, like I said, you have African Americans, you have people in West Africa, the Igbos, Yorubas, different tribes. Everybody is starting to pay attention with the signs and the signs of the times, the signs of the seasons. And so you have the awakening. The awakening is also getting people prepared for what is to come.
Right, right. And so I agree with you that we are in a season of preparation, and we're in a season of purging and maturing. And I believe that's why so many of us go through the hardships that we go through, because the Father is maturing us. And so we're about to go to commercial, but then right after the commercial, I would like to, Ron, I would like your thoughts on how we can help people that are in the process of awakening, or better yet, the ways that we hurt people that are in the process of awakening. And I have a whole 3 hours to talk about that. But anyway, we're going to go to commercial for our listeners. When we come back, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to press 1. We would love to hear from you. You are listening to the Hebrews to Negro Show on Survival Radio Network, where we do radio.
Looking for a cafe with a home-like appeal where all who enter feel like they are part of something? Visit My Coffee Shop, located in Eastlake, Atlanta, Georgia. MCS has a full breakfast and lunch menu, offering both hot and cold options, and is home of the amazing basil lemonade. But don't forget their assortment of freshly brewed coffees. Come on by at 2462 Memorial Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, 30317. We're pretty sure My Coffee Shop at Eastlake will become your coffee shop, too.
Survival Radio Network, with now more than 1 million downloads. Congratulations to the staff, producers, engineers, and hosts for your tireless pursuit of excellence. And thank you, our loyal listeners, for supporting this movement to inspire, motivate, and educate people worldwide. Survival Radio Network, Survival Radio Christian Network, and our new Survival Sports Radio Network broadcast top-notch shows Sunday through Saturday. Check us out by visiting our website at www.survivalradionetwork.us. SRN, we do radio 1 million strong.
On October 1st, the Atlanta Blues Society is presenting their first Georgia Blues and Roots Festival at the Maple House Barnes Amphitheater in Mapleton. In addition to stellar performances by Dorica Singleton, Delta Moon, Big Bill Morganfield, and Johnny Winter's Grammy Award-winning harp player Frank Latour, we will have John Pagano Band, Taz Crew, Caroline Aiken, Donna Hopkins, Diane Tourette, and that is just a few. There will be a harmonica workshop for kids, blues dancing lessons, great food, vendors, and so much more. For more information, go to GABlues, That is GABluesandroots.org.
To investigate, don't need no FBI.
The SRN.
Welcome back to the Hebrews to Negro Show. This is Tina Matthews, and I'm here with my co-host, Ron Dalton. Ron?
Mm-hmm.
So, do me a solid, right? Please talk about the issues that you see that affect people or hurt people in their process of awakening. Because we talk about this a lot, but I just want to put it out there.
Well, I think when a lot of people are awakened to the truth, it's one thing to let people know that they're Israelites, no matter where they're from, if they're inquiring and they're from Tanzania, from Kenya, or from the Igbo tribe, or UK, or the Caribbean, anything. I mean, even Latin America. The most important thing, at the end of the day, if we believe in our whole Bible, not just the Old Testament, is that we have to talk about salvation, of course, and baptism, and confessing that the Lord Christ is our God and our Savior. I mean, that's most important, because you have a lot of people out here that once they awaken, before Hebrews to Negro show, a podcast show, they get on the internet and they go on and look at a lot of these camps, and they see that some of the camps are not prescribing to Christ and salvation. They're just simply talking from an Old Testament standpoint as to the Ahia or Yahuwah, and they're trying to go through Christ to get the Father. They're just going and going through the way that they've been taught out of the Old Testament, even though they're not sacrificing for their sins, even though they're not, doing anything that was strictly what the Israelites did back in those days when you actually had the tribe and you had the priests. So you have to, when you're waking up a person to the Israelite Awakening, you have to kind of guide them into what they've been taught before and what you believe in. If you believe in Christ, and it's your duty to tell them about Christ and the New Testament and what the New Testament talks about. Of course, we know about the wild olive root with the Gentiles. We know about the natural branch that the Israelites were a part of, and a lot of them broke off because of their unbelief or because they wasn't witnessed to or they just rejected. But like in the New Testament, Paul says that he also wants his own people to be saved and to receive the salvation of Christ. And in James 1:1, like I talk about how he writes a letter to the scattered 12 tribes of Israel abroad. So it's important that you also...
Ron.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I hate interrupting you, but we have John on the line that has a question.
Oh, okay, for sure. John?
John?
Hey, I have like a 3-part question. It pertains to everything you guys have been talking about, but I'm sure you guys seen the chart with the 12 tribes on it, and it's saying, okay, Judah is the Negro, and this is that, and that is this. Is that true, or?
Oh, the 12 tribes chart, meaning that the tribe of Judah is only the Negroes, and that's it? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and it would say something like, I'm not sure, but it would say something like the tribe of Levi is the Haitians, or the tribe of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I think I honestly think, and a lot of people will agree with me, is that it's impossible for us to be able to know exactly what tribe we come from. I mean, slavery happened for so many years, and different people were taken from different parts of West Africa. I mean, you have certain people from West Africa saying they're from the tribe of Ephraim, like the Yorubas. You have some people saying they're Manasseh or Gad, like in the Igbos. You have other people claiming other tribes. But in my opinion, I mean, nobody really can ascribe to what tribe they're from. If that's the case, how can they prove that? Do they have any DNA proof that can mark them to a specific tribe, even down to the Conite tribe, which is the brother of Moses, Aaron? And so I think, I mean, at the 12 tribes chart, it encompasses the Caribbean, it encompasses America, South America, Central America, but there, that's mostly the Western Hemisphere of the world. It doesn't describe to the other part of the world, meaning Asia and the Pacific Islands. So in my books, I talk about that. But I really don't hang everything on the 12 tribes chart. But the Negroes in America, we are Israelites. I can't say if we're from Judah or Manasseh or Ephraim, but most people, of course, as you know, they're saying they were from Judah, just like the Ashkenazi Jews say they're from Judah.
Yep. Second part. What is the fate of the Edomite? Can they be saved?
Well, in my opinion, because in the New Testament you have the Gentiles. The Gentiles, of course, that were offered salvation, and we know Paul was speaking to the Gentiles, and we know some people may say the Gentiles were Israelites, but then in Luke 21:24 it says that the Gentiles will take over Jerusalem and trodden it down, and the Israelites will be scattered to all nations, and then this is supposed to be the Gentiles' land or controlling land until the second coming of Christ. And we see today in Israel that the majority of people in the land of Israel, the Gentile Arabs, Turkish Arabs, and the Gentile European Edomite Jews are essentially Gentiles. They're non-Israelites. They're not the people of Israel. But, the only way they can be saved is through Christ. And that's, of course, talked about in the New Testament, and they're referred to as the wild olive branch.
Well, John, thank you for your question. I'm sorry we had to interrupt you, but we had Jeremiah on the phone that has a question or comment, and so we definitely want to be able to have the opportunity to get everybody in. So, Brother Jeremiah?
Oh, shalom. How you doing today, sister and brother?
Shalom.
How you doing today?
Good.
I was calling. You was mentioned about the division. I used to be a part of Israelite in Christ and GLCC. And one thing I realized about those brothers that they have like false doctrine, like they indoctrinate our people. And like one thing you have to understand, like you have to understand these laws are perfect, conferring the souls. But for example, like if a woman, she's wearing pants, I'm gonna be very humble to be patient with that woman. Say, look, just put off those pants. But like I said, we're supposed to be patient, and or fingers. That's the point. But that's one thing. The Messiah was very patient with our people.
Right.
We should have patience. But you was mentioning about the Gentiles. When you read Matthew chapter 6, the Messiah was only for a governor, only for the 12 tribes of Israel. And those Gentiles referring to was only, when you read Ephesians chapter 2 and 11, were Israelites that were allies. Because when you read Hosea, the 10 tribes, that was not the Most High God's people. And so what happened was the Most High kicked them out because they didn't keep the law and they was serving other God, other nations. But those other nations that they was referring to were the Israelites, weren't actually Israelites, But
wow.
Apostle Paul, when you read, other nations can have repentance because if therefore the other nations can be baptized, like you was mentioning about the baptized, they can't get baptized because baptism is part of repentance. It's part of repentance when you get baptized. So, a lot of people say, but like I said, if they want to lie the scriptures and the truth, I have no problem with it,
Well, bless the hallelujah. So, Brother Jeremiah, thank you for your comments. We look forward to hearing you on the show. Our future shows, our time is death, so I want to tell you thank you, brother, and please, please, please continue to support the show and what we're doing, because my heart and Ron's heart is set on being used by the Most High to encourage and edify His chosen people. So, Brother Jeremiah, thank you. So, Ron, we got like 2 minutes left, brother. So if you want to talk real quick about like next week, because next week, just for our listeners, I am so ready for next week. It's going to be fire. We might get arrested.
Yeah. So next week we're gonna touch on the Black church, what we're going through now with the Black church, and there's a lot of heat in the Black church. A lot of people, I don't know if in Detroit, the new era Detroit, went into Wayne T. Jackson's church and caused a little bit of a ruckus or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, we're going to touch on what happened and what's going on with a lot of people and how they feel towards the Black church in regards to what's happening in these end days and with the awakening, and to try to get some clarification. And, the Black church needs to wake up. And I believe that some of them are going to wake up, not all of them are going to wake up, but that's going to be the topic for next week's show. It's going to be the Black church in regards to the Israelite Awakening. So you can call it the Black church versus the Israelite Awakening, but, we're going to talk about that.
Yes, and so for all our listeners, we're asking you to call in to press 1 to share your experiences that you've had once you came out of the church, or your experiences when you're trying to share the truth with the church. Talk about with all this hell and chaos that's going on among our melanin people, how could that be when there's churches on every corner that profess to have power? And so, again, before we go, I just want to say this on behalf of Ron and I. The purpose of our shows is not to bash or to make fun of or to belittle any group, any people. The purpose of the show is go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry. You close it out, brother.
We're supposed to have love for our brother. Like, that's one of the main commandments that Christ told us, to love your neighbor, love your brother. And then we also, we don't want to bash the Black church or bash the other Israelite camps, because we all came into this truth. A lot of us came from the Black church, and we're all on the same mission of awakening and trying to bring everything together so that we may endure to the end, we may obtain salvation. But we need clarification, we need dialogue. It's important that we talk about this in these days, the Black church and the Israelite Awakening. So you're right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So on that note, I'm going to say good night. I was trying to say it in Hebrew. I was practicing, but I don't think I got it. So I'm just going to say good night in English.
Good night. Good evening.
I thought it was Erech, Tav, Mishpah, whatever. Anyway, brothers and sisters, Hebrews and Shebrews, Shalom, and may the peace of Elohim continue rest upon you. Good night.
Good night.
Using the media, people can be convinced or swayed to believe anything Satan and man wants them to believe. Remember, the majority of all the TV channels we watch in America are not controlled by Indians, blacks, Latinos, Arabs, or Asians. Only those who have eyes to see and ears to hear will not be blinded by Satan in these last days. My mission is to wake up Black America and people of black descent all over the world, because a storm is coming and we need to be prepared for it. The time is now for us to wake up. So if you agree with my mission, my beliefs, and my message in the Hebrews to Negroes, please help me and my team make a difference.
Wenn dein Chef sagt,
gehen Sie mal früher,
und dein Verein den Pokal holt, und du dich fragst, kann es überhaupt noch schöner werden, sagen wir... Grillen mit Bratmaxe. Da wird jeder Tag Bratmaximal lecker. Knusprig und kross. Bratmaxe. Von Maika.